So as we think about Scatterplot and the things we can do with
Scatterplot and the
one of the things that might be
do
cool
with
with this
One of
graph,
the things that might be
just
cool with
created
this graph that
would
we
be
just
to
created
add
would be to
average number
add
of home runs.
So let's get rid of
Average
the
number of
smoothing
home
line,
runs.
and
So
instead
let's get
we're
rid of
gonna
the
put
smoothing line
on the
and
graph.
instead we're going to put
The average
on
number
the
of home
graph
runs per
the
year.
average number of
And there are
home
different
runs
ways
per
to do
year.
that, but what
And
I'm
there are
going to
different
do
ways to do that,
is
but what I'm
I'm
going to do
going
is
to
create a new data frame,
create a
called
new
team
data
save,
frame
or team
called
average,
team save or team
and
average.
I'm going to start with teams,
and I'm going to
Control
start
Shift
with M for the
teams,
pipe
Control
operator.
Shift M for the
I'm going
pipe
to group
operator.
by. I'm going to group
year
by
ID.
year ID.
Control Shift M. I'm going to
Control Shift
summarize.
I'm going to summarize.
I'm going to create a new variable called average.
I'm going to create a new variable called average.
And that's going to be the
HR,
mean home run.
and that's going to be the mean.
So what this is
home
going to
run.
do is going to take every year.
So what this is going to do is going to take
and
every
then
year.
all the teams in that year. It's going to take the mean
and
number
then
of
all the
home
teams
runs
in that year. It's
by
going to
team.
take the mean.
So let's do that.
number of home runs.
We'll get
by
teams.
So let's do
Our
that.
data frame, and it basically
We'll
gives
get
us the
teams.
average number of home
Our
runs.
data
a
frame, and it
team
basically
had
gives us the
in our
average
data
number
of home runs a team.
Okay, so
had
let's do
in
this.
our data
Let's
frame.
create our new.
Okay, so let's do this.
GG
Let's create
And
our
what I'm going to do,
new
what I'm going to start with what I
GG
did
plot.
before.
And
So
what
what
I'm going to do, what I'm going to start
plot and
with what I did
before.
each of my
so
plot
essentially I'm going to be plotting
and,
two XY scatter plots on here.
each of
So
my
I'm going to create the first
essentially
one.
I'm going to be plotting
and I'm going to use
two
GG
XY
plot
scatter plots on here.
and teams
So
is
I'm
my
going to create the
data,
first one
and
I'm going to
GG plot
instead of including
and
the
teams is
aesthetic
my
in
data
my
and I'm
GG
going
plot
to,
command. I'm going to
instead
put
of
the
including the
aesthetic
in my
the GM
GG
point.
plot
So the
command.
aesthetic
I'm going to
will be
put the aesthetic
X
in
equals year ID,
the GM point.
and
So
Y
the aesthetic
equals
will
home
be.
run.
We'll see why this
X
is necessary in a
equals
minute.
year ID,
But
and Y equals home run.
We'll see why this
We'll go
is
ahead and do that
necessary.
in
That's
a
just going to
minute.
basically save everything.
We'll go ahead and
in
do
this
that.
That's just
going to
basically save
our global
everything.
environment.
So we could type
G1
in this element
control
here
enter,
in our
plot it,
global
right?
environment. So we could type
G1.
So let's delete
Control
that.
enter,
So
and
what
it'll
I want to
plot
do
it, right?
now is I want to add that average.
So I'm going
So
to
let's
delete
G1
that.
and
So what I want to do
I'm gonna
now
add
is
a
I
new
want to add
GM
that average
point to it.
So I'm going to do G1.
And my
and
new
I'm
GM
going
point,
to add
the
a
data
new
is
GM
no longer going to be
point to
teams.
it.
The data is going to be
And
team.
my new GM
Teams
point,
the data
say
is no
from the
longer going to be
average
teams. The
data
data is
frame
going
I
to be
created.
team.
From
The
teams,
aesthetic is going
team
to
say
be
from
X
the
equals
average
your ID
data frame I created,
and Y
and the aesthetic
equals
is going to be
X
X
equals
home
your
run.
ID and
Okay,
Y
so let's do
equals
that.
Av home run.
Okay, so let's do
It
that.
doesn't like my spelling of year ID, so let's change that to year ID.
It doesn't like
and
my
run
spelling
it.
of year ID.
And so there we get
let's
in
change that.
here's
to
my
year
graph,
ID
and that's a
and
bit
run it.
disappointing. And the
And so there we
reason
get
why
in-
it's disappointing is just here's
it
my
puts the
graph,
same
and that's a
size.
bit disappointing. And the
my
reason
average
why it's
point is mixed in
disappointing is
here with
just
all
it
these,
puts
so
the
well,
same
that's a little
size.
disappointing.
There's my
Let's
average
do
point
some
is
things
mixed
to
in
set
here with
it
all
apart.
these. So well, that's a
Let's
little disappointing.
first
Specify
let's
in the
do some
point,
things
let's
to set it
specify
apart.
Let's
Size.
First,
We'll say size
specify in
equals
the
4.
point. Let's
We'll run
specify
that.
size.
And,
That's
So
a
we'll say
little
size
better.
equals
That's a
4.
little better. I see
We'll
now.
run that
in my
And
graph. Here's my
that's
average
a little
point.
better.
That's a
It
little
helps
better.
a little
I see
bit.
now in my graph. Here's my average, but it helps
I
a
could
little
also
bit.
change the shape.
And I can look up on the internet for all
I
the
could
different
also
shapes,
change the
but
shape.
and I can look up
the shapes have these
on
different
the internet
numbers.
for
I
all the
happen to
different
know that
shapes,
17
but
is the shape of a
triangle.
Shapes have these different numbers.
So let's
I
run
happen to know
that,
that 17
and we
is the
see
shape of a
in our
triangle.
graph that
So
well,
let's
that's a little
run
more
that,
distinctive. The
and we
triangle
see is the
in our
average
graph that
Finally,
that's a little more distinctive.
Let's add a
The
color on
triangle
here. Is the average
that color
Finally, let's
add a color
orange,
on
make it
here
pop even more.
and make that color equal to
Orange,
zoom
make
in,
it pop
and we
even
can see
more.
there are the average number of home runs per
team over
and we can
each
see
year.
there are the average number.
So let's do
of
this.
home
Let's
runs
add
per
in then, let's
team
add in our
over each
titles. So let's do this. Let's add in then, let's add in our titles.
I'm going to go ahead and say home runs by each team per year. And I'm going to go ahead and say home runs by each team
triangle,
per year. And I'm going to add a little something. Triangle, home run. That shows team average, home run.
And there we go. So now we've taken a XY scatter plot from one data frame, created a new data frame, added that on as a separate line to our ggplot, and now we've got a nice visual that tells us a little more than where we started.